I would like to welcome all who tuned in to another edition of Treasures. The title of today's treasure is God Defeats His Enemies, and it's treasure number 80. We all know God defeats all of His enemies and that He's omnipotent, all-powerful. In today's treasure, we're going to look at the simple things He has used to defeat all His enemies. And the people that use these weapons were not trained in anything except for one, a little shepherd boy. And so we know God uses simple people to use these simple weapons. We're going to talk about the first one. God used the rod of Aaron and Moses to perform mighty miracles in Egypt and in the wilderness. I'm going to give you a couple examples of Aaron's rod. Exodus chapter 4, verse 2 out of the New King James Version reads this way. So the Lord said to him, "What is that in your hand?" He said, "A rod." Exodus chapter 7, verse 9, the New King James Version reads, When Pharaoh speaks to you, saying, "Show a miracle for yourselves." See, Pharaoh wanted a show. Then you shall say to Aaron, "Take your rod and cast it before Pharaoh, and let it become a serpent." And in Exodus chapter 17, verse 9, the New King James Version, And Moses said to Joshua, "Choose us some men and go out to fight with Amalek. Tomorrow I will stand on the top of the hill with my rod, the rod of God, in my hand." And the rest of the story we know is they defeated Amalek. And now let's talk about the only one that had a little bit of training. God used a little shepherd boy named David to bring down Goliath with a slingshot. 1 Samuel chapter 17, verse 50 reads this way, New King James Version. So David prevailed over the Philistine with a sling and a stone, one stone, my brothers and sisters, and struck the Philistine and killed him, but there was no sword in the hand of David. Think about that. Some Bibles say he was 10 feet tall. Some say he was 13 feet tall. He was all armored up, had a helmet on, spear, all that. And that little shepherd boy brought him down by the power of God. Think about that. This is one of my favorites. God used a jawbone of a donkey in the hands of a man named Samson to kill 1,000 Philistines. The story is in Judges chapter 15, verses 15 through 17. Again, New King James Version. He found a fresh jawbone of a donkey, reached out his hand and took it, and killed 1,000 men with it. Think about that, 1,000 men. Then Samson said, with the jawbone of a donkey, heaps upon heaps, with the jawbone of a donkey, I have slain 1,000 men. And verse 17, and so it was when he had finished speaking that he threw the jawbone from his hand and called that place Ramath Lehi. How about this one? We all remember Gideon. He wasn't sure of himself, but God called him. And here's the rest of the story. How he asked God for signs that would let him know he would be victorious in battle. That would probably be a good thing, to know that you're going to be victorious. The story is in Judges chapter 6, and we're going to read 37 through 40, New King James Version. Look, I shall put a fleece of wool on the threshing floor. If there is dew on the fleece only, think about what he's saying, and it is dry on all the ground, then I shall know that you will save Israel by my hand, as you have said. But then Gideon started thinking, he goes, I don't think God will be upset if I ask him for another sign. So here's what he did. Verse 38, and it was so. That part was fulfilled. When he rose early the next morning and squeezed the fleece together, he wrung the dew out of the fleece, a bowlful of water. Then Gideon said to God, here we go, do not be angry with me, but let me speak just once more. Let me test, I pray, just once more with the fleece. Let it now be dry only on the fleece, but on all the ground let there be dew. And God did so that night. It was dry on the fleece only, but there was dew all over the ground. God used 4 leprous men to put a whole army to retreat. This story is so powerful. They're all powerful. To put them to retreat and leave all of their belongings behind. The story is found in 2 Kings chapter 7, verses 6 and 7, New King James Version. For the Lord had caused the army of the Syrians to hear the noise of chariots and the noise of horses, the noise of a great army. And all this was the 4 leprous men walking across the sand to go out and see their camp. And then they started saying, look, the king of Israel has hired against us the kings of the Hittites and the kings of the Egyptians to attack us. Therefore, listen to what happened. Therefore they arose, fled at twilight, and left the camp intact, their tents, their horses, and their donkeys, and they fled for their lives, including all their food and everything else. This is a final example of God's power. God, we serve an awesome God. And he says that he's the same yesterday, today, and forever. Hebrews 13:8. 2 Chronicles chapter 20 and 21. New King James Version. They rose early in the morning and went out into the wilderness of Tekoa. And as they went out, Jehoshaphat, the king, stood and said, hear me, O Judah, and you inhabitants of Jerusalem. Believe in the Lord your God. Oh, there's a statement for all of us. Believe in the Lord your God, and you shall be established. Believe his prophets, and you shall prosper. And when he had consulted with the people, he appointed those who should sing to the Lord and who should praise the beauty of his holiness as they went out before the enemy and were saying. Now they have no weapons. Think about what I'm saying, my brothers and sisters. And they said, praise the Lord, for his mercy endures forever. Now let's read verses 22 and 23 out of chapter 20. Now when they began to sing and to praise, the Lord set ambushes against the people of Ammon, Moab, and Mount Seir, who had come against Judah, and they were defeated. For the people of Ammon and Moab stood up against the inhabitants of Mount Seir to utterly kill and destroy them. And when they had made an end of the inhabitants of Seir, they helped to destroy one another. Think about what I just said. They turned on each other and killed each other. So what was the weapon that God used? A whole group of singers going out in front of them, praising God and singing, giving God all the glory. In that day, Old Testament, it was Yahweh. So that's the God we serve, my brothers and sisters. So be encouraged in the days that we're living in. He's not going to leave us or forsake us. That's his promise. So I hope you enjoyed this treasure. You don't have to be someone special. God can use any of us. I know I'm not special. I don't consider myself special, but God saw something in me and I'm humbled and honored. And you can be used also. The key is just be available. So until we meet again, may the Lord bless you and keep you.